Okay, welcome everybody, and welcome particularly to my guest, Anna Grace Taylor. Thank you for being here, Anna.
Oh, thank you so much, Anne-Marie.
Oh, it's a joy. I've been really looking forward to this. So yeah, I just want to introduce Anna, and also want to just talk a little bit about why I'm starting these podcasts. So it's the ripple of awakening, and I want this ripple to go out and touch people. And this is part of the journey, to start to record these interviews with people who have been on the awakening journey, are still on it, and have insights and wisdom and love to share. So that's really why I'm doing them. So I'm going to start with a little introduction about Anna, which is in my book, The Ripple of Awakening, because I interviewed Anna. We were just talking before we came on. It was summer 2019. And we were saying, oh my goodness, what a shift has happened over that period of time. So we have a whole new conversation that will come from that, I have no doubt. Yeah. So here we go. So Anna Grace Taylor is an angel therapist, a spiritual mentor, healer, author, singer, and speaker who has been featured on BBC and Hay House Radio. Using her natural intuitive gifts, developed by years of training and experience, Anna connects with divine love and guidance to support people with all aspects of life, and often acts as a catalyst for transformation for people all over the world. Born 11 weeks prematurely and with cerebral palsy, Anna took her first independent steps at the age of 6 and learned to walk twice more following major surgery and long-term illness in her teens. I first met Anna in 2016 at the Love Seminar that I held in Arundel, West Sussex. She is such a bright and gentle soul who has inspired me immensely. She is bold and courageous, as well as fun and feminine. Her work and music is heaven sent, and I love her authentic and shining light, which always beams wherever she goes. So that was the little introduction in your interview that's in the book, because I interviewed quite a few people in that summer. And, you know, we don't see each other that often, but I always feel really connected to you. And I think when we're on this journey, this path, I think that connection is always there, whether we're here in form. And in our individual ways, we're walking this path home, we're following our hearts, and we're trusting, you know, where that takes us. And sometimes that takes us away from people, sometimes it brings us closer. And as we know, this is all part of our healing journey and pathway. So yeah, I mean, in those 3 years, I know I've changed dramatically, and I know
you
and this is the ripple. This is exactly what happens when we're on this awakening journey. So yeah, I just wanted to start really, Anna, because there's just a very obviously little taster of your journey so far. But I know for you, coming into this world was not easy. There was a lot of things, some struggles, and obviously health issues for you to deal with. So how would you say that's shaped you now as a person?
I feel like I could sum it up very simply by saying that my body has been my greatest pain and my greatest teacher. So I feel like from the word go, my soul obviously decided to come in quite dramatically, very unexpectedly, with my twin sister so early that it was a miracle that we survived. You know, the doctors told my parents that they would do everything that they could to save us. And obviously we're here, and I'm grateful for that. But interestingly, looking back, obviously I don't have a memory of that, but, you know, looking back on my childhood, I do feel like very early on, I had a sense of, one, it being pretty tough, you know, that I was quite different from other people. But that to me at the time felt like it was because of my disability. but also that I really loved connecting with other people, and that because I couldn't walk and run around as easily as my sister and my brothers and my peers, that I would sit and just be with people. And I remember very early on feeling like I wanted to help people in some way. I didn't know what that looked like for me, but I think because I was always interested in people's stories, maybe because I had one, maybe because I always had an ability to communicate, interestingly enough, I can talk. And so it felt like, when I see it now, I think if people ask me what I'm most grateful for, apart from the people that I love and the people that I, share my life with, is my voice, my ability to share, because it gave me such a way to be able to ask for what I needed, which is sometimes really hard, but very, very necessary for not just my well-being, but for my survival in lots of ways.
Mm.
And also to be able to be very honest with people, and for them to be honest with me, and to feel like actually perhaps we're more similar than we are different. So yeah, that was maybe not what I was aware of immediately, of course, but growing up, that's the way that I responded to people and responded to the challenges that I faced the most.
Yeah, thank you, honey. And I think that's, doing the interviews for the book, I found that common theme, throughout, however it was presented. Each one of us had, a turning point or a tragedy or a bereavement or feeling different and just maybe not fitting in. And do you see it as a gift now? Because I know for myself, what my own experience, absolutely, I would not be this person without what happens. I mean, do you feel you've accepted it all now and you're at peace with it?
It's interesting actually, because then, my disability for me, however challenging it was, I then had lots of illness in my teens and my 20s, having had surgery to help my disability. So in my childhood, I would tell you that until I was about 13 years old, I would have said I had a very happy experience. I did lots of things that everyone else could do, and I didn't really see it as a massive hindrance, honestly. There were times I did, but generally it was I was very accepted. My parents brought us all up to just believe that anything is possible, and then in my teens, I think that's when it was a really big struggle for me. And yet that was a huge part of my spiritual awakening at that time, because I remember being 15 years old and being very sick, and sitting with someone asking them questions about energy and my sensitivity and what was happening to me and why was this happening to me. So to answer your question, I feel like it comes in waves for me. And honestly, perhaps if you'd have spoken to me a year ago, I would have said, yes, I feel amazing in my body. I'd actually had a very powerful experience since being interviewed with you a couple of years ago, where I felt like I was in my body more than I ever had been. I was really felt so grounded, and I felt very, wow, this is who I am, and I get to live, and I could come out of survival mode. And it was a very powerful experience. I almost likened it to this completely other level of awakening, because for me, the spiritual aspect and me understanding that I was more than my body had been an ongoing journey since I was 16 years old. And yet, because my body had been such a challenge, actually for me, part of the acceptance was actually understanding that I did have this physical experience, however much it wasn't all of me, that it was important for me to embrace that. But so that's, you know, a continual journey for me, I would say. But just in recent months, I think there's been a whole other layer of me peeling that and understanding that even in the current challenges I've had, you know, can I really deepen into that surrender? And the answer is, it depends on the day. It depends on the day. So
Sure, yeah.
I'm going to be totally truthful about that yes, I feel like there is a big part of me that really sees the gifts in it. I wouldn't be who I am. I would not have these conversations with you. I wouldn't know most of the people in my life. I wouldn't do the work I do. I am super grateful for it. And that yet there is still a part of me that grieves some of the things that's happened. So it kind of goes parallel along for me, I think.
Sure. Yeah, no, I hear you. I really do. Thank you. I mean, it was to have an awareness of energy and starting to ask those bigger questions at a young age, you know, 15. That's quite unusual, isn't it? I mean, I think most people I interviewed, and a lot of people I know, it was a bit later in life, 30s or 40s. But to come in, and I think that's the thing, when we come in with something that is perceived as different, you know,
Yes.
that can obviously be the catalyst, can't it? To those questions, well, why me, or what's happening,
what's going
or
on?
But to have it, so did you, because I know you said you started to meet obviously different alternative therapists, healers, and that kind of thing. So was it through meeting them that you realized that you were spiritual, or did you kind of get it already? Did you have an awareness of that?
Yeah, I think I remember sharing this with you some years ago, that I remember, especially at you know, for a couple of years I'd seen a reflexologist, aromatherapist, and I remember asking her questions about energy then and really embracing my sensitivity. But then I met somebody, actually who's very, very important to me, who also passed into spirit about 18 months ago. And it was one of those moments, even back then, I wrote a piece about it because I felt like I'd found a reason for my pain when I met her. You know, I remember walking through the door. Her name was Jude, and we would just sit and have cups of tea. She did give me healing treatments, but big part of the journey in that space was just talking to her. And as she was talking to me about her own experiences, I suddenly thought, oh yeah, I already know that, but nobody had ever talked to me about those things. And she would say things about, you know, synchronicity and, you know, the way that she believed that, you know, God and the universe and angels were all part of our experience. And I was like, oh yeah, you know, like that just felt like it was, oh yeah. So it was a remembering to me, you know, it was a reminder. And she was a huge catalyst in that way for me. And then that continued to happen. And so it didn't really feel like I was, and in fact, even now I can count on my hand the amount of classes and workshops I've done. So I've never been particularly one for, you know, learning through lots of books and even, you know, even in my school life, because I was so unwell, I did sort of the minimal amount of formal education. But I'm very curious all the time, and I always want to learn about how things are for people. And just like we're doing right now, you know, to me, that's where I am so fascinated by people's experience. So yeah, I always feel like, and even now, and even when I came to the love seminar and met people there and talked to you, I always feel like the biggest gift that God gives me, that the Spirit gives me, is, hey, here's that person who is going to share this journey with you. And I really believe that I always think about, you know, when my soul decided to have this experience, and I was thinking, what on earth is that going to be like? I said, okay, as long as I can share it with these people. And, you know, right up until this day, recent experiences that I've had, you know, lots of grief that's come up for me, that continues to happen. You know, I am just presented with these beautiful, wise, often very skilled people who I can not only see as my teachers and companions, but people that I feel safe with. And you're one of those people, you know.
Oh, bless you, honey. Yeah, I mean, I really resonate with you, honey, about that. You know, how people come into our lives, and, you know, for me, you know, that change of direction when my awakening happened sort of in my early 30s, and certain people started to come into my life. But at the time I didn't clock it. Because I didn't even know what a
Didn't know
spiritual
what was
awakening
happening.
was. I was
Yeah,
completely clueless. I mean, completely clueless.
yeah,
But how the universe, if we're open enough, or, you know, I had an experience I call the falling, which I talk about in the book, where I
yeah. That's so
literally
powerful.
screamed out for help. Now, thank God, because that was the universe going, great, we can come in. Okay, here we go. And I had no idea, of course.
Yeah.
And then that's when I could, you know, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years after that experience, I think, oh my God, when that moment, how everything started to change, and I met these such important people in my life, like you were saying, and thank God for them, because
Yeah.
when I was a seeker for a while, for sure, and because I had so many questions, I was so clueless really to this bigger picture.
Yeah.
And that's why I find it so fascinating how the end journey is the same, isn't it? The destination is the same point, but the way we get there looks so very different.
Yeah.
But so perfect for us individually.
Yeah, and I think it's one of my favorite things in life is to be able to have conversations like this. One, because as you say, it continues, you know, we never have it figured out, right? I always say that the more I live, the less I know, you know, because we don't really know, you know, we're not in charge of that. But I love experiencing stories, experiences from other people that then make me feel like I can connect to perhaps a deeper experience of myself, or an understanding of myself, or because I have compassion for you, for example, more easily, perhaps I can then go, oh wow, actually, yeah, I can see it differently, or oh my goodness, that must have been so challenging, so I'm more able to process perhaps something that I've experienced. So yeah, I feel like it's the greatest gift for me to be able to be given that. I do feel like the people in my life are you know, literally the companions that I get to walk this journey with, however mysterious it can be sometimes. You know, the mystery is painful and challenging, and also incredibly beautiful, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, that's it exactly, isn't it? It's not always pretty. But that's how we grow, isn't it? It just seems that's the inevitability of the pain, and instead of being a victim to it, and I know, yeah, I certainly was for a while, and that's a very painful place to be. And I had no idea, again, that I was a victim of it. And it's only, you know, coming through the other side of that and looking back and thinking, oh my God, yeah, I was really carrying this very heavy weight, you know, like this rucksack of boulders, you know.
Yes, it
And that's
is.
hard. It's really hard, but you don't know what you don't know till you know
No,
it.
no, exactly,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and have you, and this is why, you know, we've spoken about this a lot, and even, you know, relating to each other and being able to sit with each other's discomfort or, you know, experience, is because we go, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I can really empathize with that. I can really feel that. And it's not that we have to have exactly the same experience, but you know, we've all been there at some point and continue to be, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd love to talk a little bit now about your experience that you had when you met your first angel, really, which sort of blew your mind and opened your heart to a love of immense, because I
It's
know that it is
wordless love.
wordless, but that again for you changed the direction of where you started to go to, didn't it? So could you talk a little bit about what happened to you? And
It did. There were some experiences leading up to that. I would say that didn't happen until 2001. That would have been, I was 20 years old at that time. So I'd already met Jude. I'd already had several years of different experiences. I was already starting to really feel into what it was really like to understand that I was a spiritual being having a human experience, and I remember seeing flashes of light out the corner of my eye, or being able to understand that when I walked into a room, I could really feel what somebody was feeling. And of course, when I was a teenager, that was super overwhelming. I thought I was just weird and didn't, it just was something that was wrong with me. And now I see it as a superpower. But back then, actually, I was really unwell. It had been a very, very challenging time. Leading up to me seeing this beautiful angel in my room. And I remember working with a friend of mine who was using visualization and hypnotherapy, and at that point she would often say to me, "Oh, just imagine like there was this big angel around you holding you," because she knew that I had this real belief that was happening for me anyway. And she always tells me that when she was doing that with me, she would always feel like the energy in the room would change, that my face would like literally light up, and that it was really happening. It wasn't just me saying, "Oh, this is a lovely visualization." It was really happening. And then one day I had actually won a competition to see Robbie Williams in concert. And at the time, actually, it was not a concert, it was a TV show. He was doing a recording for a TV show, and at the time I loved his music. And interestingly, of course, he was the writer of the song Angels. So back then I had a poster of him above my bed. So when I was doing this visualization, I would often feel like, well, it's good, I've got my angels around me, and I've also got this angel above my bed because he was there, right? So it was kind of like this running joke that I had, and I was only, 20 at the time, so it was like this really light-hearted thing that I needed. Anyway, they called me to say I'd won these tickets, and it was just like the most joyful thing that was happening to me at that time. I was like, wow, this is such a gift. What a beautiful thing. It felt like that had happened before. A year or so before, I'd also won these tickets. It was I always feel like it was one of those random but not random things at all. It had given me so much joy. I took my sister along, and anyway, it turned out that at the last minute we met him, and it was only very brief, but he was absolutely lovely, and he gave me a kiss and held my hand, and I just remember feeling this huge surge of energy, and obviously I was in such a joyful space at that time that it completely lifted me. And I thought, wow, I'm so grateful. And I felt different in that evening after that experience than I had for a long time. I felt like something good had really happened for me, that I hadn't really felt for quite some time. And I went to bed that night, and I just remember feeling so full of this, like, wow, I'm so grateful. And I was closing my eyes, and suddenly this beam of light right in the corner of my room, I almost want to say, like, I always describe it as pinky goldeny color. I can't really describe it because it's not really it's not even really a color that we would describe, but it was just beautiful. It was like this warm, glowy feeling, and just the reason I knew that it was an angel, I mean, it happened probably within, I don't know, a matter of seconds, or very short period of time, but I knew it was an angel because the love and the peace that I felt, it was just Yeah, it was like nothing I'd ever experienced, even before. I'd had lots of beautiful experiences as far as healing treatments, and I'd started to really tap into that part of myself, but it was transformative solely because I just thought, wow, this love that I had hoped that was there, I'd hoped that I perhaps would one day feel it, became a tangible experience. And so, yeah, I didn't know what to do with it. I thought, what do I do with that? But I knew that I really wanted to learn more. I knew that I wanted to have conversations about what was happening. And yeah, I really believe that my spirituality, my awakening really took on new meaning from that point. Yeah.
Beautiful. As you say, you can't put it into words, can you? That love is not of this world, really.
And even though I've had so many amazing experiences since then, I'm not sure that there are many that really equal that, because even though I'm still constantly like, wow, there's so many incredible times. And even more recently, when I've been sort of on my knees going, please just show me that, help me to feel that, when you have that experience, which is so different to anything that you've experienced up till then, it can't help but change you. And I'm not going to say that my life changed overnight, physically, for sure, but it led me to do, for example, the training with Doreen Virtue. I think it was a good couple of years later, but it was when I started to see if there were other people that were talking about angels and what that would look like. And again, I still say that was one of the best decisions I made, because it really taught me that all of the sensitivity, all of the experiences I had that I couldn't explain were, oh, wow. Oh, yeah. One, they were happening for other people, but also that I could really use it to help me and to help other people. And I mean, that's what I do now. It's the basis of everything I do. And also, I met a mutual friend of ours back then, John Campbell.
Yeah.
And I always remember that. And then I remember meeting you going, wow, John, because again, there's all these connections with everyone, isn't there? So, and that was such a long time ago, that was 20 years ago nearly now. So yeah, that was profound too. But it was for sure, especially to that point, the most beautiful experience I'd had. And I will never, ever forget it.
Yeah. I think those kind of experiences, I know I had something, similar. And as you say, that love is all encompassing and it doesn't judge. It's just, we hear the word bandied around a lot, unconditional love, but that of this world, that is very rare. But in the experiences that you had and I've experienced, it literally is 100%. We are loved without question. And I know from that day when I experienced that for myself, I knew whatever I perceived I'd done or not done, I was loved by that source. And that never left me. I know that I could leave it, as in, go down another pathway or go into fear or whatever. But I always knew that one thing was consistently there. And that was, I don't know, it gives hope. It gives meaning somehow, doesn't it? Even when we do go off track and we have our stuff happen. Like it's there, it's the anchor, isn't it?
I was exactly going to say that, even times throughout my experience, because there's definitely been plenty where my faith has been whoosh and all over, but there's this part of me, and I was reflecting actually back on that when you asked me to have this conversation, because honestly, if you'd had this conversation with me even 3 months ago, it would have been like my faith was very, very shaky because of certain experiences that I'd had. But you're completely right that when I have those heartbreaking experiences or things that really don't make sense to me, I come back to something like that Not that I have to make sense of it, not that I even have to have that kind of, story with it, but that even when I'm mad, sad, and angry, like, wow, actually, okay, yeah, that love is there. That love is there. And I feel having something like that happen it doesn't, unconditional love is, so even as parents, we say, oh, I love my child unconditionally, or, oh, I love this friend unconditionally. Yeah, no,
It's not the same.
no,
It
it's
isn't.
not. No,
No,
it's not the
because
same. And actually, I have to say, I'm a pretty loving person. I am not unconditional. I know I'm not. I know I'm not.
yeah.
I'm like, this person really upset me, and why did my parent not do this? And but that love is so beyond any of that. So I do, yeah, you're completely right. And it's so important to say that we can have all those human moments, but then coming back to that as an anchor point is where the basis, I think, for my own faith. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think this is what I love also about you, Anna, is this, when you say get mad, sad, and angry, or whatever, and this is it. It's like, I went through a phase where, and I think we go through different stages and phases of the awakening. And that's why I wanted to share these different stories, because I think it helps people to realize, oh, I'm not mad, someone else has experienced that. And I certainly went through a phase of kind of this kind of positive thinking and affirmations, and they were helpful to a degree. But what I started to realize was I actually was numbing down what was really a lot of the emotions I was feeling. And I thought, well, that's not healthy. And I can't remember who, someone once used this term bliss ninny. And I thought, yeah, this trying to be a bliss ninny. So like we're blissful all the time. And it's like, it's not real.
No.
It's just not, and it's not authentic. And I think this is the shift that's happened for me over the last few years, is like, shit happens, right? It does, right? And we feel like we're going crazy, or we feel rageful, or we feel less than loving.
Yeah.
And actually that's okay, because what the shift happens is like, I've got to allow that to come out of me, to come to the light, to be healed.
Yes.
Because if it's stuck in the darkness, it can't be healed. So I actually see now there's actually nothing wrong with those experiences, as long as we don't dump them on someone and go raging at someone in a harmful way. It's let them come to the surface and give them to the light. And how that healing and that miracle and that forgiveness happens is usually not of us, is it?
No. And I feel like that's been my journey, actually, or I've been reminded of that so much in 2022. And you've known me for 6-7 years now, and most people who know me will know that I often share, whether I'm super excited or whether I'm really struggling. And people ask me about that, and of course I'm not saying that I always have done it in a way that I would have wanted to later on, but most of the time, actually, I can honestly tell you that I don't have any shame, or I don't feel any sort of weirdness in doing that, because I don't feel like that defines me. I don't feel like I'm staying in that space. So when I share, I'm saying this is my experience now. And I also know that I will have a different experience. And so I can come back to that love actually a lot easier if I say, wow, it's a really hard day right now. Wow, it's been such a hard summer for me. And I don't see anything wrong with that, because I don't attach myself to those waves that happen. It's just happening,
Well, they pass through, don't they? And I think the more we can release them, and give them a voice, that's how they pass through,
Yeah.
by their very nature. So
Yeah.
I think this is important again to share, because it helps give people permission, that it's okay when we have these
Yes.
dark days. And
Yeah, and to our vulnerability, our vulnerability is different from, as you say, just being venting or mean or rageful for the sake of it. Our
Yeah.
vulnerability, showing someone, the truth of perhaps this painful experience we've had, or actually sometimes for me, my vulnerability can be in, hey, actually I really need help with that, or that person who really is the angel person and everyone knows is the loving, helpful, supportive person. Hey, I'm having a really hard time right now, and you can either embrace that or you don't, but I don't feel like I have to sort of explain or apologize for that part of me, and I think that's because I can come back to love. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Anna. It's so beautiful. And it's, as you say, it's real. It's just this is what it is, the authenticity of that, and that vulnerability.
Yeah.
And it's a great line in A Course in Miracles. One of the lessons is, in my vulnerability, my strength lies, or something like that.
Yes.
And because I know, again, the phase I went through, I saw that as a weakness for a while. You've got to be all, love and
Don't think
light
about it doesn't exist. Yeah.
And it's like, well, actually, this is real, and we're not perfect, as in, we're going to have emotions and feelings, and so I'm so grateful for that shift for myself. And I know I've worked with a few people recently who've been in that loop of like, yeah, but I'm feeling, angry, I'm feeling this, and I shouldn't be, because I'm spiritual. And I said,
What does that actually mean?
but this is exactly, and this is where we need each other to help us realize, actually, that's okay. That doesn't define you, as you were saying. It doesn't mean that's who you are all the time. It's just an emotion that's coming up, is coming to the surface, and it's there for a reason. And I also remember, I've done quite a few funerals and been minister at quite a few funerals. And I've always, encouraged people to say, just, if you have any emotions, let them out. They're welcome, please. If you can't cry here, when can you cry? And I remember going to one funeral, and, and everyone was going, we've been told we mustn't cry. We've got to be strong today. And I just thought, okay, but it's, that's just kind of,
it's very difficult. You're kind of setting yourself up for this hugely high standard, aren't you? Really?
It's really, and what of course happens is, when we push this stuff down, where it has to go somewhere, and that's what I realized. And then I became a fruitcake, completely crazy woman, because I wasn't allowing this to come out. Yes. And so eventually, when it started to come out, it was like a tsunami. It was like overwhelming, because I suppressed it for so long. Yes. So I think, you're a great demonstration that over the years you've done it little by little as it's come.
And even for me, recently, I think grief can give way to other grief. So even though I've been grieving one aspect of my life, that 14, 15-year-old whose life turned upside down was again super wanting to have a conversation about all of this stuff that had happened to her. And it comes back to what you were just saying, that as a way to cope, I feel from a young age, when I started to really embrace, wow, I can do all these things to help myself, and I can even help other people, and whoa, look, there's all these different things I can do. I wanted so much to find reason in my pain. I wanted so much to feel like it was okay because I had all these beautiful gifts from it. And that is still true. It's still absolutely true. But I do think some of that then suppressed this part of me that felt like she had to do that more than, was probably comfortable for her at the time. And yeah, I think we don't always know that. And then suddenly when we're older, we go, oh yeah, actually, I feel safe enough to be able to express this. And I think our journeys have layers to them, don't they? So yeah, I completely agree. And I always say, when we say, oh, I can't do this because I'm spiritual, or I can't say that because I'm spiritual, or, you know, that person's different to me, I'm spiritual, is really, we're forgetting that we're all spiritual. You know, we're all spiritual beings. We are all, to me, we're all divine beings. It's just that some of us have, as you say, the awareness, the awakening of that being the truth, but we're all spiritual beings, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And that, you know, that was one of the questions I asked in all the interviews, you know, what does awakening mean? And without exception, it was this, we're coming home to who we truly are. Yeah, I mean, so with the experience that you've had, I mean, how would you say, if, you know, someone is going through physical, you know, because for you, obviously, a lot of it has been around the body and physical stuff. What would you kind of say to support people who that's happening for, to help them step forward in some way on this journey?
It's challenging because we do have to be in our bodies to have this human experience, and sometimes, you know, it can be very challenging to feel limited in that way, in whatever reason, or uncomfortable, or in pain, or, you know, and actually, even in the spiritual community, there's still a lot of I've experienced, not so much now, but I did experience, especially when I was younger, a lot of, you know, well, if you're still experiencing this in your body, then you're not spiritually connected. You know, I experienced a lot of prejudice in a way for the disability or the illness that I had. And so some of it is understanding that, you know, that is the opposite of love and compassion and kindness. And so if you're experiencing that in some way, it could be also because you're also judging yourself for it. And find, you know, even one person who you feel like has compassion and empathy for your journey, because if they're telling you that you aren't perfect because you haven't healed this physical thing, that is not that is not the people that you want to talk to. And so I would tell that to my younger self, because she really struggled with that.
Yeah.
And also I would say that when you are wanting so much for your body to have a different experience, try not to fight it. You know, try to come, as we talked, try to come home to it, try to treat it gently, just like you would a friend. See it as, how can I work with this body that I have chosen for whatever reason that feels absolutely mysterious for me, and what is it that I can do to be kinder to myself? Because then you're actually going to be able to see it as part of this whole beautiful, messy, sometimes learning that we're going through, rather than trying to come out of it because you feel like you're not your body. Of course you're not your body. There's so much more to you than your body. But I feel like I had to learn that I did come here in a body. I did choose to have this experience. And so it's about really you know, letting it be embraced as all of me, rather than, you know, something that I was trying to have a battle with all the time.
Yeah, I mean, there's the secret right there, isn't it? Because the ego loves a battle.
Yeah.
In any form, whether that's with the body, whether that's out in the world. And of course, as you're saying, it's the opposite of love, because it's fear-based if there's a battle going on. And I think, you know, the way you describe that, you know, you're not doing the spiritual bypass. This, you know, this is a term I came across a while ago, where we think because we're spiritual we don't experience these things. Or there's an acceptance there, there's, as you say, there's kindness there, there's openness, there's love and compassion, and a holding of that part of us, which is love. That's what love does, isn't it?
And, you know, in the stories that I tell myself now, you know, I am very aware of the stories that make my body the reason that I am not lovable. I am very aware of that part of myself that says that my body is the reason that I haven't had this experience, or I can't do this, or I haven't met this person, or and it becomes this sort of, this very heavy weight, and it's just not true. It's just not true. All of the reasons that we give ourselves that we might feel unlovable, and we all have them, right? We all have
Oh,
them.
yeah.
We all go to those particular places. For me, it's my body. And so it's understanding, like for you, it might be something else, is understanding that we have those little things that come up in us that keep saying, oh, this is where you're not lovable, and this is where you've got to be different, and this is where you're not perfect. And if you can really go, oh yeah, there's that thing in me again, there's that little story that keeps repeating, and actually surrounding it with more compassion, and doing what you can, obviously, to shift that, or to feel supported by that with other people that you can share with. That's the key, isn't it? Because we're never, as you say, we're never going to get it done. We're never going to, suddenly feel like we have no issues. It's never going to be like, oh, everything's, completely figured out. So it's working with those things that we know are those kind of trigger spots in us, so that we can make the most of our lives. And my intention for this year is to really do that, because I feel like I've delved so deeply into my own wounds, but it's very necessary for me to do that, because I'm already feeling lighter, because I don't feel like they have so much control over me. So isn't that great when you go, oh wow, that was really 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 difficult, but oh, hang on a second, it's not playing such a role in my head anymore. It
becomes lighter, doesn't it, as we shine the light on it. It actually becomes lighter, because like that was saying at the beginning, that rucksack I was holding, with these heavy, I had to actually look at what was there to sort of release them and let them go. And there's that, and of course, as we shine the light on these things, we're actually realizing that's who we are the light. And we can hear those things being told to us. When I was told that, I'm the light of the world, I thought it meant nothing.
You don't know. I always say things like, oh, you don't know who I am, you have no idea. We can go into all of that, like I'm separate from everyone else, and all that thing.
So it takes time, doesn't it? And it takes patience and kindness, as we were saying. And so I was wondering, Anna, do you have a particular kind of spiritual practice that works for you, or is it more about self-care and just, or do you kind of sit and meditate every day, or what's your kind of way of doing it?
Because I'm usually, some of my day involves connecting with and for other people to help them to feel supported and guided. I always have a prayer or an intention to be able to feel like I am opening up to that even more deeply. But in my own personal experience, I always come back to gratitude. You'll know that almost every day, I even share it on my Facebook page. There's always something I'm grateful for. Most days, I'm not saying every day, most days I post like, today I'm grateful for. And I've done it actually since the pandemic, when we had the lockdown. I remember thinking like, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna need something to kind of come back to, and to find something in this day where I can be grateful. And so I come back to that a lot. I've actually recently done that even in a journal practice. So literally writing 5 things I'm grateful for every day. And that has been a big part. But also, where possible, I try to remember those kinds of experiences like we talked about, even if it's a flash of that experience that I had 20 years ago, or when I was speaking to a beautiful client of mine, or when I'm talking to you, of going, oh wow, yeah, that feels really loving. And even if I've had all the other stuff happen going on around me, I come back to that feeling and those things that help me to stay connected to that love inside of me. And then it becomes an anchor, and it becomes a place that I can come back to when things have been really rocky.
Yeah, thank you, honey. Yeah, gratitude, it's such a powerful process, isn't it? And it can shift the mindset, really.
Very
If we are
much,
having
very
a
much.
little
Yeah.
bit of a dark day, and just to stop and look around and
Yeah, because
see
to
what we
me, and I
have.
don't feel like I'm being like, it's not a fake thing of like,
Mm.
oh yeah, I'm grateful for my home, even though everything's crappy. It's like, no, sometimes I'm really grateful for a conversation I had, or for my bed, or
Yeah.
for a cup of tea that I had. And it's not trying to find all these grandiose reasons why I'm super grateful. It can be in the simplest things, and that sometimes can be really hard when we're in the depths. But it is possible to do it. And I often find that even if it's harder to find one or two, then once I've started to write those down, more comes to me. So it kind of grows, doesn't it?
It really does. It really does. Yeah, that's how it happens, for sure. Yeah. Wow. Well, I'm very grateful for you, Anna.
I'm super grateful for
And
you.
I kind of getting to a point of maybe rounding off the interview. And I'm sure we will talk again, because there's, as you say, this, what I find so beautiful is there's continued growth, isn't it? And it's like, like analogies, but it's a simple one, but the analogy of a tree, when we can have our roots deep. And I think that's what, when we do this work, our roots grow deeper and deeper and stronger, and that's the faith, isn't it, that keeps us steady even when the winds are blowing and and the stuff's happening. Having that faith, like you were saying, that experience that you had where you felt the love, and the truth of who you are.
Yes.
They are the deep roots that hold us
They're the deep things.
when it's the wind is really howling and blowing, and so when we have those calmer days when the sun is shining, and we're just steady, there's no big song and dance going on, but it's just like the tree, it's just there, isn't it? It's like, I'm here.
Yes,
I'm just here.
absolutely. It's a very contented feeling. That's what I would describe it as. It doesn't have to be like boundless excitement or joy. It's like here I am. Yeah.
Yes, it's steady. It's more steady, isn't it? It's more as the big extremes, it becomes more
exactly.
gentle.
Although I do have those, and that's
Of
part
course,
of me.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
coming back to that is the steady part, isn't it?
Yeah, as you say, it's the anchor, as we spoke about, on the deep roots.
I feel like actually that is a really great symbol sometimes for anyone. I was going to say, if you resonate with that, or you need an anchor, or you're wondering what that looks like for you, even just the word or a symbol of an anchor, just bringing that to mind can be super supportive in those moments where everything feels very rocky.
Yeah. Okay, so before we sign off, is there any little words of wisdom or insights or prayer, anything you'd like to offer just before we leave, that your heart's ready, would love to share?
I'm just going to come back to something that I often say or use as a prayer, and that is, God, divine, the angels, thank you for showing me love. Thank you for showing me the truth. Thank you for showing me the truth of who I am. And so it is. Because if I can come back to that, then everything just unfolds in its best way, doesn't it?
That's beautiful. Yes, amen to that. And thank you to this divine beloved source that is always guiding us home and has our backs. Thank you. So I will put.
Thank you so much, Anne-Marie.
Oh,
and
thank you, my darling.
As always, I always feel full of love and safety and truth when I talk to you.
Likewise. Yeah. Well, I'll put your information below so people can contact you. They can go on your Facebook and your lovely book. So there's lots of information there. And
Thank you so much.
yeah, well, this is it. We're sharing it together, aren't we? I love the quote from Ram Dass that says we're just walking each other home. So
yes, and I was going to say, anyone who is watching, because I'm obviously going to share this with my audience, if you like, you know, that you know, the book that Anne-Marie has written, that I'm part of, it's such a beautiful way to feel heard and understood, and to really feel like you're sharing the journey of awakening. So definitely check that out if you can.
Bless you, honey. Bless you. Oh, may the ripple continue for us to just
Rippling
expand.
out. And I'm sure in another 6 months, if we have another conversation, it'll be entirely different.
Oh, yes. All right. Thank you, darling.
Much love. Bye-bye.
Lots of love. Lots of
Bye-bye.
love.